There we go. All right. Well, welcome again, everyone, to this month's monthly meeting of 350 Wisconsin. And I'm Christina Cook, one of the monthly meeting team members, and happy to welcome you all tonight. I'd like to introduce the other members of the monthly meeting team, Kelly Kearns, Julia Isaacs, Marion Friedel, Susan Nossel, and most recently, Lee Lanford. And Lee is going to do our land acknowledgement. The next slide.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And just quick shout out on there. My last name is Langford.
Langford, sorry.
There's a little G in there. Not a big deal. So before we move into the rest of our meeting, let's ground ourselves by taking 2 deep breaths and reflect on how we are connected to the land beneath our feet. With humility and respect, I acknowledge I am speaking to you from sacred and continuously inhabited Ho-Chunk land, the 4 Lakes region known to the Ho-Chunk people as Dejop. May we be inspired by the ways that the Ho-Chunk and other indigenous peoples, especially by their vision of stewardship, and seek to emulate their relationship with nature as sacred.
Thank you, Lee. All right, we'll move to the next slide. So this is our plan for the evening. Welcome to everyone who's joined us in the last couple minutes. We're glad you're here. And a special welcome to those of you who are new or here for the first time. If you are new and you're comfortable, please feel free to drop your name in the chat and where you're calling in from. It's fun to see if people are coming from all over. And we want these public meetings of 350 Wisconsin to be welcoming and supportive for all people, regardless of background or identity. So Susan has shared our code of conduct in the chat. If you have any questions about that, you can speak or contact myself or Kelly Kearns. So we're still in the kind of opening overview of the evening. In just a couple minutes, we'll do some breakout rooms and break out into smaller groups. So you'll have a chance to chat with folks more individually, one-on-one, instead of in this big meeting with all of us here. Those will last about 8 to 10 minutes. So not a long conversation, but hopefully just enough for folks to connect with each other. And then we'll have our featured speakers of the evening, Ken Van Horn and Jeff Lafferty from Public Health, Madison and Dane County. And there'll be time for Q&A after their presentation. We'll then have some action updates from the various 350 Wisconsin teams and some additional time for further discussion at the end of the meeting. So I think that's it for the overview. And so Lee, you can take the slides down
Okay.
and Susan can get the breakout rooms ready. And we have a discussion question for the breakout rooms that you're all welcome to use, or if you'd rather just kind of chat and get to know each other, that's okay too. But our suggested question, which I've just put in the chat, is how have your concerns about climate change affected your engagement with the 2024 election? It hasn't impacted it at all. You could share about that as well. And yeah, we'll give everyone, we'll have the breakouts open for maybe 8 to 10 minutes so that hopefully everyone has a chance to share and get to know some of the other people on the call tonight. So Susan, are you able to open breakout rooms for us?
And Christina, I'm going to pause the recording.
I was just going to ask. Thanks, Kelly. Kelly is on it. All right.
Great.
So I hope everyone had a good discussion in their group, had a chance to get to know a couple people a little better. And now I'm going to turn things over to Marion to introduce our speakers and our topic.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm Marion. I'm on the monthly meeting team, and tonight we have Jeffrey Lafferty. He's the environmental epidemiologist, and Ken Van Horn, who's the emergency preparedness coordinator. Both work at Public Health Madison and Dane County. When we first started talking about this idea for this meeting, we were talking about the crises that we were familiar with from the past couple of years, the air quality problem that we had from the wildfires in Canada, and also our 2018 flooding event here in Madison, which was so impactful. But now it's like this past week, we have Hurricane Helene, and then this week we have Hurricane Milton coming in. It's like double, coincidentally, the same week we're having this meeting. So I want to offer a warm welcome to Jeff and Ken to talk with us about emergency prep in our community of Dane County and Madison. So welcome, Jeff and Ken.
Okay. So Ken and Jeff, if you guys want to unmute.
Yep, I
Take it
have
away.
unmuted. Oh, you want to go ahead and start? Okay. So as we were introduced, I'm Jeff Lafferty with my colleague Ken Van Horn. And tonight we're going to be talking about air quality, climate change, and a few more things. Can you advance, Ken? Okay. So our presentation is about 37 slides, and that includes both the introduction slide and the resources slide. So about 34, 35 slides of information. It's going to be broken down into three basic blocks: air quality, extreme heat and climate change, and health implications and preparedness. As Marion has said, air quality has been in the news, especially after the Canadian wildfires. And the extreme heat, climate changes, it means hotter days, and that can greatly impact our community, our infrastructure, our economy, and our most vulnerable. Climate change can cause real harm because it impacts both extreme heat and it impacts air quality. Emergency preparedness is extremely important because it can reduce the impact to human health and respond to emergencies such as a heat event or flooding when they do occur. It's not an if, it is a when. All right, Ken, next slide. So our first block is air quality. Okay, that's good. And we're going to be focused on two main components, which is what we focus on in Dane County for our air quality measurement, which is ozone and particulate matter. So our coverage of ozone and particulate matter, I'm sure it's probably a review for many of you, but just to cover the basics in case there are people that are not familiar, ozone is a gas composed of 3 atoms of oxygen. Ozone occurs both in the Earth's upper atmosphere as well as ground level. Ozone can be good or ozone can be bad. It depends on where it's at. Stratospheric ozone is a good ozone because it protects all living things from the ultraviolet radiation of the sun. Ground level ozone, that's the bad stuff. That's also called smog, and it can trigger a variety of health implications, especially respiratory diseases such as asthma and COPD and bronchitis. Where does it come from? So ground level ozone stems from a series of chemical reactions from air pollutants, which are typically derived from the combustion of fossil fuels. So think about your cars and your trucks and your buses on the roads. And it's a combination of nitrous oxides plus VOCs and a bit of sunlight, which leads to the development of ozone from a chemical reaction. All right, Ken, next one. Next slide, Ken. Okay. Next topic is particulate matter. As you see on the screen, it's extremely small. and you inhale these into your lungs. So PM stands for particulate matter, also called particle pollution. And it's a mixture of solid particles and liquid droplets found in the air. Some particles, such as dust, dirt, soot, or smoke, are large enough to be seen by the human eye, and some are tiny, which need to be seen with a microscope. We're most concerned with PM10 and PM2.5. PM10 are inhalable particles with diameters that are generally 10 micrometers and smaller, and PM2.5 are particles with diameters 2.5 micrometers and smaller. And these penetrate deep into your lungs where it's hard for your body to remove them. And it can cause some serious lung damage depending upon your level of exposure, acutely or chronically. All right, Ken, next slide. So why are we concerned? Poor air quality can make us sick. Both ozone and small particles can cause coughing, breathing problems, and damage to our airways, depending upon the level of exposure. Can cause coughing and some scratchy throat, make it more difficult to breathe, both deeply and vigorously. It can inflame and damage airways. It can make the lungs more susceptible to infection, and it can increase the frequency of asthma attacks. This occurs among people that are healthy, but it's worse for folks who have underlying health conditions such as asthma, emphysema, COPD, chronic bronchitis, or lung cancer. Long-term exposure to poor air quality, it is linked to the aggravation of asthma, and it can also be one of the many causes of asthma development. Studies have shown in locations that have poor air quality over a long period of times, or even a short period, depending upon level of exposure, is linked with increased deaths from respiratory causes. All right, Ken, next slide. Did our picture not pop up? Because there should be a picture of, there it is. So how's it measured? It's measured using the air quality index. So think of the air quality index as a big yardstick, which runs from 0 to 500. The higher the AQI value, the greater of level of air pollution and the greater the health concern. For example, an AQI value of 50 or below represents good air quality. And Madison typically has good to moderate air quality, while an AQI value of 300 represents hazardous air quality. You see from the screen, AQI is divided into seven categories, with the lowest being good, and it progresses from there depending upon the level of air pollution. We focus on ozone and PM2.5. Each individually can cause the AQI to increase, or they can work together they both can be elevated enough to put the AQI past 101 or higher. Each level is color-coded, which makes it easier for people to quickly determine what level of air quality and what the health implication is. It's also great for messaging. So we try to reach out to the community. We can use these colors to inform people this is what our recommendations are for this air quality AQI level. All right, next slide. Let's give a bit of history. So from 2014 to 2022, that's about 9 years, we had 8 days total when the air quality index was above 100, which is unhealthy for sensitive groups. All right, Ken, next slide. Go to 2023 with our Canadian wildfires. We had 27 days in a single year when it was above 100. 2024, so far, we've had 0 days. Now, there was an air quality alert on September 18th from the DNR, which they forecasted it to go, the AQI to go above 101. It actually didn't make it there. It got close, but it did not make it to an area of unhealthy. And that's where we define poor air quality as 101 and above. And that's what triggers public health to take steps in both messaging and surveillance. All right, Ken, next slide. So let's pull some data. I'm a data guy. Let's look at some data. This is a scatter plot that's available from airnow.gov. And if you're curious about how to pull this, just shoot us a message and we can walk you through it. And this is for 2023. And it shows you that there were 3 days that were very unhealthy. There were 2 days that were unhealthy, and there were 22 days that were unhealthy for sensitive groups. And this updates, and this shows every day it was monitored. And you can pull this by year, you can pull it by community. So when you pull this data up, it by zip code, by community, I think it's by county, and you can show your selected year, and you can select one or two pollutants. We usually look at ozone and PM 2.5. All right, Ken, next slide. Here we are in 2024. This is what a typical year in Dane County looks like. All of our days are good and moderate. The majority of our days being good. So we're doing good so far, but the year's not over yet. So Ken, next slide. Thank you. So what happens when we have a poor air quality day? Like I already mentioned before, on September 18th, the DNR issues an air quality alert to Wisconsin communities. The DNR uses air quality AQI calculations and weather forecasts to predict trends and make a forecast across the state or within specific counties in the state. So when they expect an AQI above 100, they'll issue an air quality alert. And this alerts public health to increase our surveillance, as well as look at, there's another data block called Essence, which we can look at respiratory disorders from emergency rooms and see if there's any increase from these air quality days. It also activates emergency preparedness to increase messaging or get things prepared in case more steps are needed. And Ken can talk more about that. So, but let's be honest that air quality prediction is relatively new and the models aren't perfect. Conditions can change quickly, and so the models need to be improved. They're good, but they're not perfect. So, what's really cool is the US EPA and NOAA, which stands for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, are working together to improve air quality prediction. So, as the slide points out, just think about how storm and tornado forecasts were back in the 80s and 90s. They were okay. They saved lives. But today, they're much more focused, they're much more accurate, and they're much more timely, and they save lives. So hopefully this is the route that air quality prediction will go with our forecast. More accurate, more timely. All right, Ken, next slide. And so where do we find this information for the scatter plots and for the AQI, and where can you find it? Go to airnow.gov. This is the homepage. So you type in your zip code, and your AQI pops up. And it gets updated every hour. Next to the red tab, says fires. There is a little tab that says maps and data. That's where you go to if you want to look at the scatter plots. Okay, next slide. And I think I'm going to be passing this over to Ken for extreme heat and climate change, because that goes directly into emergency preparedness. So thank you for putting up with me, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, so I will take over on extreme heat and climate change. And why are we talking about extreme heat? The average temperature has risen 3 degrees since the 50s, and it's projected to increase another 2 to 8 degrees by 2050. And so heat contributes to a lot of air quality issues, including ground level ozone production, the use of air conditioning and air emissions from the manufacture of electricity, forest fires, increased pollen production because the climate change causes increased growing days. So we have more high pollen days. And so heat is definitely contributing to air quality in addition to the dangers of the heat itself. So extreme heat days over 90 degrees are projected to triple by 2050. And then maybe even more concerning to us in public health is that the number of hot nights when the temperature doesn't drop below 70 degrees is likely to quadruple. And that's really, really important, because for people who are exposed to the environment, who are homeless or don't have air conditioning, or are living in a heat island, which we'll talk about, that the temperatures dropping below 70 at night give you a respite. It's almost like this biological reset. Your body gets a breather, and now you can take another day of pretty high heat, and you're going to be okay. But when you can't cool off at night, that heat stress just builds and builds in your body. And we know that that's when we'll see the incident of health issues associated with the heat will really, really increase when people can't cool off at all in between. So this is a really concerning number for us, that quadrupling of the days below 70. I'm sorry, days where it doesn't drop below 70. And we'll look at data. This is all data that Jeff prepared for me, because he's the data guy, and I love this stuff. So our historical change in temperature from the 50s overall is that it's hotter. It's interesting that there are parts of the northern part of the state where it's accelerated even faster than it's accelerated here, the change. So we're looking at about 2 to 3 degrees in Dane County, but you can see in central and northeast and northwest Wisconsin that the change is really quite dramatic, almost double what it is here. And if we look at the minimum temperature, so these are the days where the minimum temperature is above 70 degrees, and you look at the historical conditions on the left from 1981 through 2010 versus what they're projected to be from 2041 to 2060. So we're somewhere in the middle here. We're not in the past, we're not in the future yet, but you can see that the number of days where that dangerous minimum temperature of 70 degrees, like that's as cool as it gets, that is really going to dramatically increase. And in northern Wisconsin, historically, that almost never happened. If anybody's gone camping in the North Woods, you remember as a kid going camping in the North Woods and you needed a sleeping bag at night because it was going to be, in the 60s. It might even drop into the 50s. And that's just not going to happen as often as we go into the future here. And when we look at the projected average temperatures, so the mean temperature, and this is basically just taking a look at the overall average temperature, you can see that we're looking at probably a 4 or 5 degree change. The prediction ranges, and of course, this prediction, this weather or climate change prediction isn't like super dialed in, but the range is from 3 to 8 degrees. And so it would follow then that we're looking at probably a 4 or 5, maybe even a 6 degree increase in mean temperature from 2041 to 2060 here in Dane County. So let's look a little bit more local. This is the pattern in Dane County. And as you can see that not all neighborhoods are created equally. And the difference here is impervious surfaces, asphalt, rooftop, parking lots, and the opposite of that, which is available tree canopy, and how much available tree canopy really does mitigate some of these effects of heat. So during the day, these impervious surfaces absorb heat, and then at night, they release that heat back into the air, and that contributes to some neighborhoods having a lot more of these nights that don't get below 70 degrees. And so we call this a heat island effect, and we've been mapping it. So we're working with 2 professors at the University of Wisconsin, and we're trying to focus on figuring out where these heat islands are, and then developing information for the public, specifically to address concerns for people who are living in these heat islands. And then the long-term goal is to have this data impact short and long-term strategies to protect the public health and reverse the urban heat island effect. So if the city of Madison is going to spend money on trees, we know right where the trees need to go. And this is hopefully this kind of data will impact some of those decisions that are made by departments that traditionally don't think about health, like streets and parks. And they think about it a little, but they think about it from their little angle, and they're not thinking about it from a public health perspective. And so we're trying to get the data to help them make good decisions and be good stewards. And this is just a look at what happens when there's a heat wave now. So during a heat wave, the heat islands really cause inequity. It shows this is the average air temperature during past heat waves. The red areas are obviously warmest, green areas are coolest. And during the hottest days, we're looking at like 94.5 degrees, but on the heat islands, but in the surrounding regions, it's like 91 degrees. And that's only 3 degrees only. But that's a great big deal if the 3 degrees at night is the difference between 68 degrees and 71 degrees, because that's right where that break point is, where it really starts to cool off for people and allow their body to get that biological reset. And so this 3 degrees is still concerning for us. So the effects of heat waves and extreme heat. First of all, this exacerbates inequities, and all disasters of all types, natural disasters, public health disasters, whatever it is, they always magnify inequity. But in this case, folks who have socioeconomic inequities have worse health outcomes. It's especially hard on children, the elderly, people who work outdoors, people who are unhoused and don't have air conditioning. And there's a whole bunch of heat-related conditions such as heat stroke, which is obviously a heat emergency. And then it's also linked to respiratory problems because higher temperatures contribute to the buildup of harmful air particles, as Jeff talked about earlier, so that those chemical reactions that create the smog, those reactions happen more efficiently and faster when the temperature is higher. So that contributes as well. And then some things that maybe not be quite so obvious, power outages. So when we have heat waves and more people are using the electrical grid, we're more likely to see that grid be stressed, have something break down, and we'll have power outages. And of course, as soon as that power outage happens and people's AC isn't working, we're going to see more health effects. And then pollen. So I talked about this just really briefly earlier, but the warmer temperatures cause a longer growing season. We start earlier in the spring, we end later in the fall, and that means that these plants have longer growing seasons, and the amount of pollen that's in the air goes up. That contributes to the particulate matter that Jeff was talking about, and it leads to problems, especially for folks with underlying health conditions such as asthma and other respiratory diseases. And then insects. So the longer periods of warmer days increase the period when our favorite blood-sucking critters like ticks and mosquitoes are out there, and those things spread disease, Lyme disease, West Nile virus. That cockroaches in people's apartments and homes can reduce air quality from their droppings, and those are increased when there's a longer season for them to be active. So it also leads to drier and more vulnerable areas for forest fires, which we know can really, really impact air quality like it did in 2023 of the Canadian wildfires. So that's the end of what I was going to say about heat, but I'll talk a little bit about what we do for emergency preparedness in public health. So our job is to prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters that impact public health. And almost all disasters impact public health to some degree. And we use the standard preparedness cycle, which is, if we can, we prevent, mitigate, then we prepare, respond, and then recover. And in public health, what we're especially concerned with is that we can continue to provide the services that we need to provide. What we don't want to do is have to shift all of our staff to dealing with an emergency and then shut down other programs that we consider really important. We want to be able to effectively and efficiently respond to the things that are in our scope, like communicable disease and water issues, but we also, because all of these city and county departments work together during an emergency, we want to be able to efficiently support other agencies. So if it's a big event, but it doesn't have a huge public health impact, there's still going to be public health folks who are working in the Emergency Operations Center and providing support services to those other agencies who are dealing with it, and vice versa. So when there's a big public health emergency, it might not seem like the police department has anything to do with it, but they might contribute staff if they've got the staff and the time and energy to help us. That happened a lot during COVID, like a lot, like the zoo chipped in people to help at Lion Energy Center. And there's a lot of just sharing of personnel and equipment and expertise in order to get the job done. So that's a really, really huge example. It doesn't usually happen like that, but it happens at the smaller scale all the time. And then the other thing we want to do is make sure that the public has the stuff that they need to prepare themselves for an emergency. So there is a public health emergency preparedness program that is a grant from the CDC, and it ultimately pays for my salary. So I'm a fan of this program. But there are 15 preparedness and response capabilities that we have to prepare for with this money. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's our job to make sure that these are addressed. Not all of these are things that we do in our department, but it is our job. Like, for instance, mass care. Like we're public health, but we're not an actual a direct care organization, except for a couple of really specialized programs like maternal and infant care and sexual and reproductive health. We've got a couple little niche areas, but we wouldn't normally do mass care, but we do have a role in ensuring that there are mass care plans, knowing what those are, so that we can help during an emergency to bring those plans to fruition. So here's the things we're worried about. And this is the more slide, right? Because this is what climate change is doing. It's just giving us more of these bad things, more extreme heat, more of these big storms like we saw this week and are seeing this week. More heavy rainfall events, more flooding, more high winds. And then this is really concerning me is more back-to-back events. And I was going to talk about I think it's in 2020, we had a big storm that caused a lot of power outages followed by 3 days of extreme heat. And that was really challenging for us to have these back-to-back disasters locally. I don't know what disasters, but they were really, really big emergencies and really challenging. But that looks pale in comparison to Florida getting 2 hurricanes, 7 or 8 days apart. So, these back-to-back events are incredibly, incredibly stressful for communities. And that second event is not, it's almost like it's a multiplicative effect. It's not like they just add together, they multiply together. That second event is much more difficult. It's not just 2, it's like it's 4. It's just first responders are already stressed, resources are already depleted. Communities are already have problems like stuff that's damaged but didn't quite break, now breaks the second time around. And so it's really a problem when these events come back to back. So what can you do to stay safe? We wanted to end on a positive note. There are things that you can do to make sure that if disasters happen, or if there's an air quality event, or if there's an extreme heat event, that you're prepared and that your loved ones and neighbors are prepared as well. And one of the things you can do is keep an eye on the AQI, the air quality index. And then we have, if you go to publichealthmdc.com/air, we have recommendations for what people should do at each category. And we have, these are internally, we have these not only for the public, but we have them for city and county agencies and for businesses and for organizations like youth sports and schools that recommend what should we do at recess if the AQI is over 300. And we've got this prepared so that folks can take action to protect their health. And we at Public Health want to communicate with the public and community organizations. We work with cooling centers to make sure that they have the supplies that they need, including water. And then we work through the Dane County Emergency Operations Center to ensure that the rest of the county responds and focuses on what we need to do here. And I need to give a shout out. It's not on our slides, but I need to give a shout out to the Dane County Library System, which is the Dane County Library System and Public Health are just, we have a lot in common. We have a lot of very, very similar outlooks, and they are incredible at helping us. They're basically our primary cooling centers. They're our primary heating centers. They're already distributed throughout the county. They have a really caring, kind, understanding staff. They've got space, and they really, really work with us when we need to find a place for people to go. And so I can't say enough good things about the library system and how helpful they've been. And today, if you need a COVID test, you can go to most libraries and they're still distributing them for public health. So they're just incredible partners. So what else can you do? Hot weather. Stay in air conditioning if you can. If you can't, reach out to loved ones or friends, or visit our community centers. Drink water, wear loose light colored clothing. This is for the folks in this room who seem to be, experienced Wisconsinites, cheeseheads. We know how to do this kind of stuff, but not everybody does. And so, reaching out to friends and neighbors and loved ones and making sure that they're doing these things can be helpful as well. If you want more information about how to make an emergency plan, you can go to readywisconsin.gov, and they'll have information on how to create an emergency supply kit and what to go in there, and how to set up a support network and keep your family and friends and neighbors informed about what's going on with you, and to find out what's going on with them so that you can provide help or get help for them if they need it. This is one of those things that, and this is as an emergency preparedness guy, everybody knows that you should probably have an emergency response kit. And when we do surveys, very few people actually have them. This is just one of those things that people just don't do. And I'm an advocate for this, and it's pretty easy to do. And you do it kind of once, and except for a couple items that expire, it's done for years and years. And then when you need it, you've got it, and it's a really good thing. So. We talked about checking with neighbors, friends, and families. This one is really interesting too. If you know someone who lives in assisted living or in senior housing, you can't 100% count on the staff and that program to make sure that everything is good. They're stressed. And the biggest thing that happens that causes problems there is that because of an extreme weather event, the staff can't make it. And so now you have staff that are stuck, and it's not like they're going to abandon your loved ones, but now you've got staff that are working a 24-hour shift or something while waiting for relief, and it gets dicey. And so if you have a loved one who's in one of these facilities and you're doing okay, and you have the resources to be able to check on them and make sure that they're okay, that's really actually quite helpful to the staff there, and it's just a good idea. And then because especially older folks are impacted by these events, if you know folks who are living alone and have health conditions especially, it's great to check in with those folks. So here's a couple of additional resources. So that if you go to our website, we've got air quality, flooding, storm stuff, winter weather emergency preparedness, and then just general emergency preparedness stuff is at readywisconsin.gov and ready.gov, whereas everything else here is just at the public health site. And I think we're on to our last slide, which is just us, in case you wanted to contact us with any follow-up questions. Although I think Jeff and I are going to stick around for a little while here at the end in case there's a breakout group and people want to ask us some questions. I think we have to get going. I don't know. I don't have a clock in front of me. I think we
7:50 now.
Yeah, I think we both have to like pop smoke at about 8:20, 8:25, something like that.
Yeah.
But we're till then.
Sounds great. Thank you, Jeff and Ken, very much. We have a few questions in the chat, which we'll ask. And so the first one is from Kevin. He wants to know, to what degree do the public health emergency and response capabilities and related funding vary from administration to administration, whether at the federal, state, or local levels?
The good news is not very much at all. So the grants are given in 5-year blocks, which makes them somewhat immune to just year-to-year politics or things like that. The grants come from the CDC, which is a very science-based organization, and they believe in this program. They have funded it continuously since 2003. And the budget is really quite stable year to year. They changed the formula for how, so the money comes down to the State Department of Health Services then administers that to all the local and tribal health departments. And the formula for how that gets distributed changes from time to time, but it's generally quite stable. And that formula is also, parts of that formula can be tweaked by states, but a lot of it is mandated by the feds. So that means that that states are largely getting the same amounts of money for their local health departments, and they have the same overall goals and deliverables that are attached to the grant.
Thank you. Thank you. We're running a little short on time, and there are a couple of other really good questions in the chat. So please consider staying after for a few minutes to meet with our speakers today, but I'll give it back to Christina for the next part of the program.
Yeah, Lee, can you share the slides, because we're on to action updates, and I think Kelly is going to run us through announcements and who's up in what order.
Right. So every month we always have a short period of announcements, and we're going to start tonight with the Arts Collective, and Diane Bakrash is going to tell us what's coming up with that.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a slide for this. There we are. So interesting, we've been talking about extreme heat this evening in this great presentation. And this action, I want to let people know our final Gates of Hell action is Saturday, October 19th at the Farmers Market, 10 a.m. And this is very much 350 Wisconsin action. It's about voting to protect our planet. And the whole theme is about increasing heat. So we do it in a surprising way, in a funny way, but at the end, we really implore people to vote to protect our beautiful climate. So we would love to have, the more support we have, the more impact we can have in terms of tablers, leafleters in particular. And if you're intimidated by engaging with the public in that way, it's really a lot easier and more fun than you would think when something surprising has been happening. And people are often like, wow, what's going on? What are they doing? So please, please, I think Maddie's going to put something in the chat, or she probably already did, a sign-up sheet. We would love to have your support, whether it's holding a banner, sitting at the table, passing out leaflets, etc. So that's what I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. If you have not yet seen the Gates of Hell presentation, it's been at several farmers markets now. It's definitely worth getting yourself to the farmers market for. It's very fun. Okay, next, through our sister organization that Diane mentioned, 350 Wisconsin Action. I think Kristen Clark will be speaking about this.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. We are officially less than a month away from November 5th. Wisconsinites are voting now. Absentee ballots were sent in September. If you would like to vote by mail, you can request your ballot at myvote.wi.gov. Your clerk will send it in the mail within 48 hours, and then the mailman will do their thing. It will arrive at your doorstep, but you need to send it back with enough time for it to arrive back at your city clerk before November 5th. You can't put it in the mail on November 5th. It has to arrive back at the city clerk on November 5th, but please do it way before then. Early vote starts October 22nd, which is in like 2 weeks. You can vote early in person. It's easy, it's fast, it saves you the line. If it's raining or snowing on election day, doesn't affect you because you already voted. I will put the myvote.wi.gov link in the chat, but I also have it linked on my very fun list of all the things you can do besides vote with us for this election cycle. So vote is very important. Make sure you vote by November 5th, not just on November 5th. You can vote before then, and that's very cool and fun. But additionally to voting, there's lots of things to get involved. We're making phone calls. You can make phone calls any day of the week. We have a dedicated phone bank hour Tuesday evenings. We have deep canvassing, which if you've missed any of the trainings, do not fret. We have a recorded training you can watch. Email Nikki with any questions, and then you are all ready to go. We are there to help you out. We have paid relational organizing. It's through an app. You download it, and you can get paid up to $250 just to text your friends and family about the election. Make sure they have a plan to vote that is as good as your plan to vote. We also have postcarding. We're targeting people who maybe have missed the past couple elections for one reason or another. And so we're going to send them a postcard and remind them that climate is on the ballot this November 5th. If you would like, you can donate to help fund all of this work we're doing at 350wisconsinaction.org. And then, like I said, you can vote early and bring your friends, bring your family. Tell everyone you know about voting early, because it saves you time, it's fast, it's easy. If you want to find out more about all these things I just talked about, you can click the link I put in the chat. It brings you to a Google Doc that has all of this information listed and all the ways to get involved. But yes, we are less than a month away, so vote.
Great, thank you. And a reminder, you can also, if you do fill out the your absentee ballot, you can drop it off at your polling station the day of the elections as well. So next up is Mariah Lulowitz, our fundraising and communication coordinator, talking about Giving Tuesday, which is coming up.
Hello, everyone. We want to remind you about Giving Tuesday. It is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and it's the start of the giving season. So that this year it is December 3rd. So right now, we just really want everyone to save the date and be ready for a really fun evening where we'll be able to have some snacks together, talk about all the work that we've done this year, and really just spend some time together. If you are looking to get involved on Giving Tuesday and volunteer with us, you can let us know. We would love to have a list of volunteers at the ready. You could help us check people in, organize stuff, help us get the in-person auction items looking beautiful. There are a lot of other options. Something is definitely ready for anyone, and there's something for everyone. So if you would like to do that, I'm going to put the emails in the chat. You can email either myself or Kristen. And then the third thing I want to touch on tonight is that we also have a call out there currently for crafters and artists and other people who would like to donate items and skill shares to our silent auction. It's a really great part of our auction to have member donations, and it's a really fun thing to do. So if you like to craft, or if you have a nature-based skill share, we would love to see what you would be willing to donate. So if you have an item that you would like to see if we're interested in, you can always email me, or we have a form that you can just fill out and I can follow up with you. If I have any questions, I will put that form in the chat as well. And we really look forward to seeing many of you at Giving Tuesday on December 3rd. Thanks.
Thanks, Mariah. Next, we have Maddie Loeffler, who is our Climate Solutions Coordinator, to talk about something going on with We Energies.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. You may remember hearing about this last monthly meeting. We Energies, an investor-owned utility operating primarily in Southeast Wisconsin, is trying to raise residential energy costs nearly 20% over the next 2 years. And today is the last day to submit public comments at the Public Service Commission. Last Thursday, a couple of us were able to attend a rally and march to the public hearing in Milwaukee. And we heard directly from residents how harmful this increase will be for their communities if it's approved. So we need as many public comments as we can get, urging the 3 commissioners to reject this proposal. Even if you're not a We Energies customer, we encourage you to comment in solidarity. Every comment counts. So I'll be dropping a link in the chat to our blog post, which has an overview of the issues and talking points, and also has a sample comment for you to use and links to the PSC public comment form. I'm also going to be linking a similar blog post for Wisconsin Public Service. Their territory is pretty large and contains cities from Wausau to Green Bay. And public comments for that are due next Monday, October 14th. So both We Energies and Wisconsin Public Service are owned by WEC Energy Group, a profit hoarding shareholder group that is also proposing new fossil gas plants. So more on those will be coming up, but yes, submit your comments tonight. I will be doing it after this. So yeah, I will be dropping those links in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Maddie. And lastly, we have our volunteer of the month, as we do every month. And so Nikki Darga, our Director of Operations and Volunteer Engagement, will announce that.
Hello, everyone. I get the honor of telling people how great they are, which is always fun. And this month we have Mark Rosenthal. Yay, Mark! I don't have a picture, but he is a frequent attendee of a lot of our events. So if you come to the things that we do, you've probably seen him around. He's a longtime member of 350 Wisconsin, and he works with us in a number of different capacities. He works with the Art Collective. He's worked with a number of different teams, the Climate Justice team, etc. And he has had a lifetime of experiences as an activist. He has worked firsthand as an RN in Africa treating Ebola. He's worked in El Salvador, and he is working to help make Wisconsin and Madison, his hometown, a better place as well. He plays harmonica in our music group, and if you came to our picnic, you heard him there, and it is so delightful to hear him play. He has been a strong voice for justice on a local and global level. And all of that is absolutely fantastic. He also is just a delightful person. He is a great ear to listen. He always checks in with people during meetings and conversations. He genuinely cares about how people are doing, and he makes sure people are taking care of themselves, especially because staring at climate and doing climate work can be really, really difficult, especially day after day. All of the things we heard today, staring at that a lot can be demoralizing, but Mark is always there to help with actions and also make sure that everybody's feeling okay. Everybody is, doing well and taking care of themselves. So thank you so much, Mark. We really appreciate every single thing that you do and everything you continue to do with 350 Wisconsin. He's also always up for a road trip to do protests and actions all across the state. And so if you join us on those, you'll probably see Mark there. And thank you so much, Mark, for everything that you do.
And Nikki, I don't see Mark in the participants list. So if you could save some of the comments for him, that would be great. And pass us
I
on.
will do that.
Great. Now I'm going to pass it back to Christina.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Thanks, everyone, for sharing opportunities to take action. Lee, if you can go to the next slide. Our next monthly meeting will be in November. It will be the week after the election. The first Monday is the day before Election Day. So we're not going to be meeting then. We'll be meeting on Monday, November 11th. And our plan is to have staff from Wisconsin's Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy to discuss the state's comprehensive climate action plan. And we don't have a December meeting on the schedule, and invite everyone to come to Giving Tuesday instead. So that's what's coming up for the monthly meeting. If you can go to the next slide, Lee. You've just heard from some of the groups and teams that are taking action as part of 350 Wisconsin, but there's lots and lots of ways to get involved. So you can see on the slide here, one set of teams. If you go to the next slide, Lee, here's even more. So if especially if you're new and there's something that piques your interest, I believe these slides will be made available. You can contact any of these people, and also please stay for a couple minutes after the end of the meeting to chat with Nikki about how you might get plugged in. And I think if we go to the next slide, Lee, that's going to wrap us up for tonight. So thanks again to our speakers, Ken and Jeff, and they will be in a breakout room for maybe 15 minutes or so to answer any other questions that folks have. If you're new, we welcome you to go to the second breakout room and chat with Nikki. And then if you also want to catch our speakers, you can hop over to the first room. So I'll have Kelly stop the recording.